journey. And yet the distance did not matter. The separation did not matter. The fact that they couldn't come together in fellowship meetings together very often did not matter. They still had a pattern that they were to follow. That pattern was the way Jesus had built a church in Jerusalem. And Paul wanted to see a church in Thessalonica that was just like the churches of God that were in Judea, in what's now Israel. There was something. Every body church, not everybody, every church in the body, everywhere in the world, should operate in the same spirit and the same order and preach the same message. It should not feel strange to walk into any church in this body and worship God with the local saints that are there. When I go to Pune, India, and I walk into that church there on Followers Road in Pune, India, and we begin to have a prelude, and the band begins to play, and the songs begin to be sung, I don't feel something different. I don't feel something strange. I don't feel something unusual, but I feel like I'm in a church in the body of Christ. I just recently crossed into Mexico a few months ago, into the church in Rio Bravo, and they began to play, the band began to play, they began to sing songs. It was in another country, it was in Mexico. Some of the songs were in a language that I don't speak, but I could feel the spirit of the body of Christ as I began to worship. There was an order that I recognized, there was a feeling that I recognized. There's a feeling in those songs that ought to be recognizable. There's a manner of worship that ought to be familiar. There's a message that maybe we don't always agree on every single doctrine, but there's certain unity that's found even in the messages preached on overcoming sin and preparing for the bride and restoration. There's a spirit, a feeling of charity in 1 Corinthians 13. That agape, that divine love of God, an unselfish love that you give away, not a love that you want. It's charity in 1 Corinthians 13 is not love like I love chocolate. It's not something that I want for me. That love is a love that I want to give to someone else, a love that is shared. I'm more concerned about others. And there should be a holiness that you feel and see in the churches in the body of Christ. Holiness is the visible manifestation of what separates us from the unsaved. What's the difference between a saved person and an unsaved one? Holiness is what makes that apparent to anyone going by. The way you operate, the way you think, even the way you entertain yourself, where you go, even how you dress. All of these are visible manifestations that the Lord's done something special in your life. So is there a specific, what we call body order, because we refer to our churches as the body of Christ? Is there a body order? Does it matter? If that order isn't uniform, I think it does matter. There is an order. Paul did say this in 1 Corinthians, the 14th chapter. 1 Corinthians 14, in the last verse, whatever that verse is, the last one in that chapter, says, let all things be done decently and in order. And in order. And then if you back up from 1 Corinthians 14, which is a chapter on New Testament order, but if you back up to a chapter, let me see. Where is it that he said, and the rest will I set in order when I come? There's a verse where he said that. Maybe it's in 11 and verse 34, I hear. And the rest will I set in order when I come. Paul's mission, part of his work, was to see to it that the church operated in a certain order. He did not want things to be out of order. There's a right way to do things. There's a way that pleases God. And that's what he told Titus in the first chapter of Titus. He said, I sent you to Crete. In one of the first verses of Titus, of chapter 1. He said, I sent you to Crete and so that you can set in order the things that are wanting. There are some things that are not in good order. And he said, I want you to make sure, Titus 1 and verse 5. I don't ever look at those screens, but there it is up there. I left you in Crete that you should set in order the things that are wanting and ordain elders in every city. But there's an order. And then when he wrote to the Colossians in the second chapter of the book of Colossians, he said in verse 5, he said, I'm not there with you, though I'm absent from you. He said, yet I'm with you in spirit, and I'm rejoicing in the order that you have. I'm thrilled with the good New Testament order that I see. He said, even though I'm not there, I behold your order and the steadfastness